Before you even sit up, your thumb is already on the screen, checking a number that moved while you were asleep. You call it discipline. It isn't. It's the same habit that's made you flinch at every red candle for years. This is about the man who built the platform you're checking, and what he learned failing twice before he ever got there. Nitin Kamath didn't start as a genius trader. He washed out of a call center job because he couldn't stand following someone else's script. And he lost money in an actual chili export business before he ever touched a stock terminal seriously. That same man built the brokerage that now processes more trades than any other in India. And there's a decent chance your own orders route through infrastructure. His failures taught him to build. Most retellings turn this into a triumphant montage. Failure, then genius, then billions. That version skips the part that actually matters. The years in between where nothing he built made sense yet, and he kept going anyway without knowing it would work. It wasn't dramatic. It was answering angry customer calls in a script he didn't believe in, then driving around trying to sell chilies to traders who didn't want to buy from a random broker on the side. Nothing about it looked like the beginning of anything. For years, he traded on the side using his own small capital, testing ideas quietly after work, taking losses nobody else saw. There was no announcement, no plan. Just a private ledger of mistakes he was the only one keeping score of. What he actually noticed, working inside the industry, was how much brokers charged retail traders for basic execution, flat percentage fees that ate into every small investor's returns, justified by nothing but tradition. The chili business didn't teach him to give up. It taught him that margins, supply chains, and trust between strangers are unforgiving teachers. He carried that lesson, not the shame of it, into everything after. When he finally started Zerodha with his brother, there was no venture funding, no big office, no press. It was a flat fee brokerage idea. Nobody in the industry thought retail traders would actually choose over familiar names. You had a version of this. An idea you dismissed because your last two attempts at something similar went nowhere. So you filed the patent as not for me instead of asking what those failures actually taught you. This isn't about talent or luck. It starts with how you define failure the very first time it happens to you, as a verdict on who you are, instead of as data about one specific attempt in one specific context. Psychologically, your brain treats an early failure as a stronger signal than it deserves. One bad call center job becomes, I can't do structured work. One failed side business becomes, I'm not built for entrepreneurship. The sample size is one, but it feels like proof. When the chili business lost money, it would have been easy for Kamath to conclude something about his own capability, instead of about that particular market, that particular timing, that particular plan. Most people make that exact substitution. After a failure, staying safe starts to feel like wisdom instead of fear. You call it being realistic, when really it's just relief wearing a disguise. Because realism doesn't usually feel this comfortable. Family, friends, co-workers, they remember your last failure more vividly than you'd like, and their caution about your next attempt, even when well meant, quietly reinforces your own doubt. When Kamath pitched the flat fee brokerage model, most people in the industry said retail traders wouldn't switch, that the margins wouldn't work, that regulators would be a nightmare. He built it anyway, without certainty it would land. What almost nobody tells you is how long the middle stretch lasts. The part after you've decided to try again, but before anything is working yet. That stretch is where most people quietly quit, not at the failure itself. Even with real skill, you will sit there building something new and feel like an imposter because the last two things you built with the same confidence didn't work either. That feeling isn't the signal to stop, it's just what starting again feels like. Practically, the retry usually costs more than the first attempt did because you have less savings, less patience from people around you, and less margin for another visible mistake. After the chili failure, people who'd seen it happen weren't going to trust the next venture just because he said it would be different. Trust had to be rebuilt in small, unglamorous increments, one kept promise at a time. You don't get to fully let go of the last failure just because you've decided to try again. It sits there in the back of your mind while you work, whispering that this might end the same way. While you're rebuilding your nerve, the market doesn't pause. Other brokerages, other players, other people chasing your exact idea keep moving whether or not you feel ready. Kamath had to build Zerodha inside a heavily regulated industry that didn't adjust its rules because he'd had a rough few years. Compliance, licensing, capital requirements, all indifferent to his backstory. At some point, you look for a way to skip the slowly building. A viral moment, a lucky break, an investor who just believes in you. Sometimes those things help. They almost never replace the actual work of proving it again. The caution the chili business taught him, checking margins twice, distrusting big promises, moving slower on partnerships, didn't vanish either. Some of it became useful discipline. Some of it he had to consciously unlearn. When Zerodha's user numbers finally started climbing, the instinct wasn't celebration. It was suspicion that it was temporary, a fluke, about to reverse the way things had before. Not the effort of building, the emotional tax of building while still carrying the last two failures on your back every single day, whether or not anyone else can see the weight. Failure isn't a character reading, it's information about one specific attempt, under one specific set of conditions, at one specific time, nothing more, and treating it as more is where people get stuck. That failed job wasn't wasted time. It taught him he needed to build systems where people had autonomy and clear incentives, which became a real design principle at Zarodha, not just a slogan. He learned firsthand how thin margins actually are, how fragile trust between business partners is, and how much unglamorous logistics work sits underneath any simple idea. Lessons that shaped how carefully Zerodha was built. The flat fee model wasn't him being generous. It was a bet that scale and trust would beat squeezing every customer for maximum margin. And it required patience most competitors weren't willing to have. He wasn't designing for an abstract customer. He was designing for the version of himself years earlier, frustrated by opaque fees and clunky platforms, who couldn't get a straight answer from his own broker. While flashier startups burned cash chasing headlines, Zerodha grew by staying profitable, unglamorous, and deliberately undermarketed. Proof that the loud path and the lasting path are rarely the same one. Zerodha never took venture capital, which meant no external investor group could interrupt or dilute what he'd learned the hard way. That independence was a direct consequence of not needing anyone's validation. His third attempt didn't succeed by chance. It succeeded because it was built on two specific failures worth of real information about people, money, and trust that the first two ventures had paid for in full. You don't need to forget your failures or pretend they didn't hurt. You need to reclassify them from verdicts about your worth to data points about conditions that have already changed. Not why did I fail in a vague, spiraling way, but what exact assumption was wrong? What exact thing would I do differently with this same information now? Think about the thing you started and quietly stopped. The course, the side project, the conversation you were supposed to have. What did you actually learn from it that you never wrote down? The failure already happened. You already paid the cost in time, money, or pride. Walking away now means you paid for the lesson and then declined to use it. That hesitation you feel before pitching an idea, applying for the role, or starting the project again, trace it back. It's probably one specific bad experience generalized into a permanent rule about yourself. Maybe it's a partner after a broken promise, a client after a missed deadline, or just yourself after quitting on your own plan. Notice that you're already doing the slow work Kamat had to do. You just haven't named it. You check the market, the metrics, the notifications multiple times a day. Ask yourself honestly how much time you spend actually building the thing you claim to care about versus watching numbers you don't control. Nitin Kamat's chili failure didn't define him forever. It defined a period, and then he closed that period and opened another one. Yours has been open longer than it needed to be if you let it. Whatever made you stop before, less experience, less clarity, less resourcefulness, that version of you doesn't exist anymore. You're arguing with a person who's already gone. Zerodha is the vehicle for this story, but the lesson underneath it is about how you treat your own record of attempts, whether you read it as a case against you or as a set of notes you haven't finished using yet. If you took the exact idea you abandoned and rebuilt it today with everything that failure taught you, what specifically would you change? Not vaguely, but the one concrete decision you'd make differently. Don't answer it for me. Answer it for the notebook, the doc, the voice memo. Somewhere it exists outside your head, where you'll actually have to look at it again. If this landed, don't just watch the next video. Take 5 minutes and write the actual specific lesson your last failure taught you. Not the story you tell people, the real one. And follow for the next one when you're ready to use it.